What's going on, duelists? It's your boy Nick, bringing you today on the channel a combo tutorial and test hand video for my branded deck profile for the post-January 2024 ban list. For those of you new to the channel, welcome. My name is Nick. I do Yu-Gi-Oh! Content mainly focused around rogue and casual decks alike. If that's the kind of Yu-Gi-Oh! That you're interested in, then I highly encourage for you to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any more of my uploads. I'm currently working my way up to 1,500 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. So as you all might know, the ban list just dropped, and Branded was completely untouched on this ban list. If anything, some could say that Branded got a buff this list because a lot of the other competing decks, you know, got some of their consistency and their power level dropped a couple notches, which is great news for Branded, especially this pure variant that I have here before you today. I am going to leave a link in the description down below for the deck profile, which I uploaded about a day before the ban list dropped. But like I said, this deck gets even better post-ban list. So if you want to watch the profile, I highly encourage that you do. This is a pure Branded deck list, and cards like Ash Blossom don't even phase us. This deck has a lot of capability to play through and or around Ash. So Ashing Branded Fusion doesn't even stop this deck. It's a very consistent and very clean deck list. Using 41 cards, it has access to everything it needs at any given moment, extremely consistent, and not to mention, it's just very fun to play. Not to mention, we also got very, new rarities out of the rarity collection, like this quarter-century secret rare Albaz. So, with the intro out of the way, I'm going to show you guys a couple of one-card combos. That is correct, this deck has several one-card combos. The first one we're going to start with is just your typical one-card Branded Fusion line. Now, obviously, some people may already know this, but for those of you new to the channel or maybe new to Yu-Gi-Oh!, maybe you're not so well-versed in how this one-card combo actually works. So, we're going to start off with a single copy of Branded Fusion. Basically, this card allows you to fusion summon a fusion monster that mentions Fallen of Albaz as material from your extra deck by using 2 monsters from your hand, deck, or field as fusion material. And then you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck except for fusion monsters the turn you activate this card. So that's pretty much what Branded Fusion does for those of you, who are unaware. But basically, you're going to activate Branded Fusion, and since this allows you to fusion summon using material from the deck, that's obviously huge because that just makes this card pretty much a one-card combo. So we will be dumping Fallen of Albaz from deck, and in this case, we'll be dumping a light monster. Specifically, we want to go ahead and dump out a copy of our Bestial Lubellion. So we need Fallen of Albaz and a light, as most of the Albaz fusions, similar to the Invoked fusions, just require a particularly named monster, in this case being Fallen of Albaz, and a monster of a specific attribute. So there are a lot of parallels to Invoked and Branded, but basically that's going to allow us to make an Albion the Branded Dragon, who just requires an Albaz and a light monster as material. So we will fusion summon into our Albion with the effect of our Branded Fusion. Now, Albion does have the effect to fusion summon, when he's fusion summoned, he allows you to fusion summon again by banishing material from your hand, your field, and or your graveyard. So it's kind of like a miracle fusion of sorts. Very strong effect, but in this particular case, we will not be using that effect here with the one-card Branded Fusion combo, and I'll explain why. Because if you do, you're going to be selling yourself short on the end board. So, you're going to Branded Fusion, dumping Albaz and Lubellion to make Albion, and then on summon, you're not going to be using Albion's effect. What you're going to be doing is using the Bestial Lubellion's effect in Grave, tributing a Dark Dragon you control to special summon itself, putting the Albion in the graveyard, which is actually where you want it, because it does have a very cool graveyard effect. Then we're going to use the Bestial Lubellion's effect to go ahead and place a Branded Spell or Trap face up in our Spell Trap zone. Now we can do go a couple of routes with this. We can either choose to place Branded Regained, or we can choose to place a copy of Branded Lost. In this particular combo, let's go ahead and choose to grab Lost. So we'll place that onto our field with the effect of the Bestial Lubellion. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to pass turn and go end phase. Now in our end phase, most of the Albaz fusions, in this case Albion, they do have a graveyard effect which triggers during the end phase of the turn they were sent to grave. In this case, Albion will allow us to set a Branded Spell Trap directly from our deck to our side of the field. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and set our copy of Branded in red. Very cool quick play spell that allows us to fusion summon pretty much during our opponent's turn. So we'll set that off with the graveyard effect of Albion, and we're going to pass turn. Now this looks very unassuming, obviously, and that's one of the things that I like about Branded, is that it's neither a combo nor a control deck. It's more of a mid-range strategy that's able to just grind every single turn and generate free advantage off of very simple lines like the 1-card Branded Fusion line. So on the opponent's turn at any point, because this is a quick play spell, we can go ahead and activate our Branded in red, targeting our Fallen of Albaz in the graveyard, then adding it to our hand, and then we can use the effect of Branded in red, allowing us to fusion summon by banishing the material. So we're going to banish our Fallen of Albaz and our Albion from the graveyard, since it's already served its purpose for us. And that will allow us to go ahead and make a copy of Mirror Jade, the Ice Blade Dragon, since Mirror Jade requires Fallen of Albaz and either a Fusion Synchro Xyz or Link monster. Then what that'll do is that'll trigger Branded Lost, since a fusion summon was performed, and Branded Lost allows us to add a monster either that's Fallen of Albaz or that mentions Fallen of Albaz in its text from the deck to our hand, in which case here we'll go ahead and grab ourselves a copy of Tri-Brigade Mercourier, who, as you know, while we control a monster that mentions Albaz as material, this card is a monster negate. And then plus we have Mirror Jade's effect now. Mirror Jade can send an extra deck card from our extra deck to the graveyard to then go ahead and banish a monster on the field, which is obviously really strong. We could even send another Albion, for example, and then that will trigger Albion's graveyard effect in end phase. So that's pretty much how the 1-card Branded Fusion line works. For those of you who weren't aware, I just wanted to showcase, you know, what a single Branded Fusion can actually pull off. And it does generate you a lot of follow-up and free advantage, which makes it very strong. Now, the biggest Achilles heel to this deck is obviously Ash Blossom on Branded Fusion. Because you're able to use material from deck, unfortunately, Branded Fusion can be ashed, and it is one of the biggest, you know, war crimes against this deck that your opponent can pull off against you. However, in this particular deck list, that's not a problem. Now, you're probably scratching your head as to how that is the case, so I'm here to show you exactly why that is. This card, Nadir Servant, fixes that entire problem. So let's just assume, let's just say you had Branded Fusion, right? The Nadir Servant is another 1-card combo. But I'm just going to, give you the example. Let's just say you had these 2 cards in hand. You go Branded Fusion, they ash, right? Well, that obviously sucks. But if you have Nadir Servant, fear not, because even though this locks you out of the extra deck, this card allows you to just play on your opponent's turn, and I'll explain how. So what you're going to do is you're going to activate Nadir Servant, and this allows you to send a monster from your extra deck to the graveyard, and then add a Dogmatica monster or a Fallen of Albaz from the deck or grave to your hand. So the monster you're going to be dumping is a copy of Despian Lulu Lilith to your graveyard. Hopefully you guys can see that. And then off Nadir Servant, we're going to search either an Albaz or a Dogmatica monster. Now, we're not grabbing Albaz unless we're going second, for example. Assuming we're going first, the card you want to be grabbing is a copy of Guiding Quem the Virtuous. Now, those of you may know this card from the most recent YCS, where Joshua Schmidt piloted the Bestial Runic deck, and he mainboarded a playset of Guiding Quem here. Guiding Quem is treated as a Dogmatica and a Despia card, which means you can not only summon her off of cards like Branded Opening, but you can search her off cards like Nadir Servant as well, straight from the deck or graveyard to your hand. So you're going to send the Nadir Servant to grave, and now that we have the Quem in our hand, we're going to go ahead and normal summon Quem, and then activate her effect to either send a Fallen of Albaz or a card that mentions it from our deck to grave. So in this case, we are going to send our Fallen of Albaz to the graveyard. And then we're actually just going to go ahead and pass turn. Now, again, this looks very underwhelming, but keep in mind, at the end phase, our Despian Lulu Lilith will trigger its effect since it was sent to the graveyard. That will allow us to special summon a light spellcaster monster directly from our deck to our side of the field, whose attack equals its own defense. Alternatively, you can also add that card to the hand, but in this case, we will be summoning it straight out of the deck, and it's a light spellcaster whose attack equals its own defense, who just so happens to be Blazing Cartesia the Virtuous. So we will special summon our Cartesia to our side of the field during the end phase, and since Cartesia is a quick effect, we basically have full combo through an Ash on Branded Fusion on our opponent's turn. Now how that is because Quem is very difficult to play around. If a monster leaves the extra deck, Quem allows us to target a Fallen of Albaz or a monster that mentions it in our graveyard and allows us to special summon it. So if the opponent commits anything to their field from their extra deck, Quem triggers targeting the Albaz in grave, we'll special summon it immediately, and then again, if we have a discard, we can just use Albaz to fuse off whatever they made to just get ourselves into a copy of Mirror Jade, for example, for absolutely free. And this is assuming that they had ashed Branded Fusion, and it's all because of Nadir Servant. Plus, not to mention, we can just go Cartesia, and then use Cartesia to fuse into almost anything we want. Even if we go like Guiding Quem effect, let's say they Link Summon or Synchro Summon which triggers Quem, and then they try to like go impermanence on Quem in response to our activation, we can use Cartesia to then activate our effect and then fuse the Quem away to make Grand Guganol, which dodges the targeted negation that was targeted on the Quem. Quem will still resolve, summoning out our Albaz, and then Albaz could still potentially trigger, as well as the Dust Dragon as well that we just summoned. And that's off of a 1-card Nadir Servant line. So like I said, Nadir Servant completely allows this deck to play around Ash Blossom on Branded Fusion, which is one of this deck's biggest issues. And now, I know that a lot of Branded decks are playing the Chimera cards, and while they are good, I just feel like playing the deck pure feels so strong, and it's so consistent, honestly. You just play the deck pure, and it's more of a mid-range grindy deck, and I love it so much. So those are the 2 1-card lines I wanted to showcase for you guys. Now we're going to start off with a test hand. I'm just going to pile shuffle the deck very quickly. Again, this is a 41-card deck list, extremely consistent, just very direct and straight to the point. There's no fluff in this deck list whatsoever. Again, I'll leave a link in the description down below for the deck list. If you guys want to check that out, by all means, please do so. And if you're watching this right now and you're still not subscribed to that channel, subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything, and all it does is benefit the channel in the long run, so I can continue to bring you guys really unique and amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content, especially come this new format in January, since now that we got this amazing ban list, decks like Branded feel very well positioned to be able to be successful and, have a very good chance at competing in a, competitive setting. So I went ahead, pile shuffle for you guys. I went ahead and cut. We're going to start this off like we're going first. So we're drawing Ad Libitum of Despia, Called by the Grave, Branded Regained, Branded Opening, and a Nibiru the Primal Being. So with just a single Branded Opening, we already have full combo. And everything else is pretty much just a plus. We also have hard open the Called By in the event that they do have Ash. But like I said, we can pivot this very well. So since we are going first in this particular case, what we can do here is we can just go Branded Opening. Using its effect, going for its effect, it discards. We'll just pitch the Ad Libitum out of our hand, so it's already in our graveyard set up for when we do the Branded and Red line. And off of opening, we're going to go ahead and grab ourselves a copy of Aluber, the Jester of Despia, and we will special summon it to our side of the field in defense position, triggering Aluber's effect on summon to search for a Branded spell trap, of which we will be grabbing ourselves a copy of Branded Fusion. Now again, we hard open Called By, so even if they did have Ash on Branded Fusion, we have the Called By anyway, but again, like, this deck is still very resilient and able to play around Ash on Branded Fusion very well, even on consecutive turns. So what we're going to do is we're going to activate Branded Regain, so we have that established already. And then we're going to go Branded Fusion, allowing us to fuse using material from our deck. So we'll go ahead and send a copy of Fallen of Albaz, as well as a copy of the Bestial Lubellion directly from our deck to our graveyard. Hopefully you guys can see that there. Let me just go ahead and slide this over a bit so you guys can get a better view of the grave. And then that will allow us to fusion summon into a copy of our Albion, the Branded Dragon, over here. Now on summon, we will go ahead and activate Albion, the Branded Dragon's effect, to go ahead and fusion summon again by banishing the material. So what we can do here is we can actually go ahead and there's a couple of ways we can go about this. Let's see what we want to actually go into. Honestly, we could just go for a Stapelia line here. Do we want to do that though? No. Sorry, just give me a second to think. I guess. You know what? Why don't we just do this? So we'll go Albion. We'll go ahead and banish our Albaz that's in the graveyard, as well as our copy of Aluber on the field. And that will allow us to make ourselves a Lubellion, the Searing Dragon. Activate Lubellion's effect. We will go ahead and discard. In this case, I could probably just get rid of the Nibiru, honestly. And then we'll activate Regained to go ahead and target our Albaz and put that back on the bottom of the deck, and then just get a free draw for our troubles. Actually, no, you know what? Hold on. We'll target our a Luber, put it on the bottom, then get a free draw, drew into a Mercurial, that's insane. And then we'll go Lubellian effect, taking the Albaz that's banished and himself, shuffling them back into the deck to go ahead and make a Mirror Jade off of the Lubellian effect. So this is our hand right now. Then what we're going to do is we're going to use the Bestial Lubellion's effect, tributing the Albion to go ahead and summon out the Lubellion. Then we'll go Lubellion effect to place a branded spell trap directly from our deck to our side of the field, which will be our copy of Lost, since we already have the Regained. Then we will go ahead and take our Called by the Grave, set that in our back row so we have as disruption on the opponent's turn, and then we can go ahead and use the Albion effect in the end phase to go ahead and set ourselves a copy of Branded in Red. And now we pretty much have insane amounts of follow-up. Like I said, the end board doesn't look very crazy, but it has a lot of pushback and can, you know, disrupt the opponent in a lot of ways. We have Mercurial as a hand trap. You know, we have Mirror Jade as a banish. We also have a way to fuse on their turn, and we also have a Called by the Grave lurking in the depths as well. So it's plenty of gas. It's more than enough to get us to next turn. And then once we get to turn 3, we can just push for game that way. Keep in mind, when we do Fusion Summon on their turn with the help of Branded in Red, that will trigger our Lost and our Regain. So we'll get a Search and a Draw. So we have insane amounts of follow-up as well. So that was just one particular combo. Let's go ahead and run this back one more time before I wrap up this video. Like I said, guys, hopefully you like this deck. The profile is linked in the description down below. I worked pretty hard on it to get this list extremely as consistent as possible, and I'm overall very happy with how it's been performing. So let me know down in the comments below what you guys think. It's just, like I said, a pure branded deck list. It's not running any of the Chimera stuff, you know, clogging it up. It's also not running the gimmick puppet stuff either. I just think that's, no pun intended, very gimmicky, to be honest, and I just feel like branded has much better lines than sacking your opponent with a Floodgate. In my honest opinion, it's like those people that choose to play Skill Drain and Labyrinth. I don't necessarily find any joy in doing so. I think Labyrinth is so much better than just Floodgate.yep. And I kind of feel the same way as far as branded goes. There's so many different lines and routes you can take that you don't even need the gimmick puppet stuff. So I went ahead, pile shuffled. We're going to do a going first hand again. We drew Nadir Servant, Dogmatica Maximus, Nibiru the Primal Being, Branded Regained, and a copy of Blazing Cartesia the Virtuous. So again, another really strong opening hand. So what we're going to do here is we can go ahead and activate our copy of Branded Regained in our spell trap zone. Then we're going to normal summon Blazing Cartesia the Virtuous, and we'll activate Cartesia's effect, allowing us to fusion summon here, using our Maximus in the hand, and that's going to go for our copy of the Grand Guganol, the Dust Dragon. Sorry if I'm butchering the name. But upon its fusion summon, this card allows us to send a level 6 or higher light or dark monster from the deck or extra deck to the graveyard. So that gives us really strong setup here. So what we can do is a couple of things. Let's just go ahead and send from our extra deck to the graveyard a copy of Albion, the Branded Dragon. Yeah, we'll send an Albion off of the effective Grand Guganol. And then what we'll do here is we'll go Nadir Servant. This will allow us to send a Despian Lulu Lilith from our extra deck to grave. And then we can add a Dogmatica monster or a Fallen of Albaz from our deck or graveyard to the hand. So we'll go ahead and grab a copy of... Let's just go ahead and grab a copy of Guiding Quem to our hand. So we have that now. Unfortunately, we've already normal summoned the Cartesia. Now, we didn't have to do that. We could have just shotgunned the Nadir Servant off the rip and gotten, like, that would have allowed us to normal summon Guiding Quem. But in this case, I think we're doing just fine with the setup that we have. What we're going to do is we add the... Yeah, we'll add the Quem to our hand. Actually, you know what? Here, I'm going to go back on this. You know what we're going to do? We're going to take the Maximus that's in our graveyard, add that back to our hand. My apologies. Off the Nadir Servant. What? Because Nadir Servant allows us to grab from deck or grave to hand. So let's grab back our Maximus to our hand off the Nadir Servant line. And then what we can actually do here is something really silly. We can activate the Maximus effect, banishing the Albion in our graveyard to special herself, which will trigger our Branded Regained, taking our banished Albion, putting it back in our extra deck, and giving us a free draw, which we end up drawing into Branded Fusion, which is nuts. Again, we are in a Dear Servant lock, but at least now we have Branded Fusion for our turn 3 setup. Now we can go Maximus effect, going ahead to resend our copy of Albion. And then what we can do is we can also just go ahead and send a copy of Brigand, the Glory Dragon. And now we can just pass turn. Now what's going to happen here is end phase, you're going to have a bunch of triggers in our graveyard. So the first thing is we're going to have Cartesia effects to add herself in the graveyard back to our hand since a fusion monster was sent to grave this turn. Then we're going to have Despian, Lulu Lilith, but before we even get to that, let's resolve Brigand first. That'll search us Mercurier. Then let's go Albion effect. Albion will allow us to set a branded spell trap directly from our deck to our field. So let's go ahead and set our branded in red. And then off the Lulu Lilith, we're going to special summon a light spellcaster whose attack equals its own defense directly from our deck. So this is where we get access to our Quem. Now Quem, upon her special summon, will send a Funnel of Albaz, or a monster that mentions it, from our deck to the graveyard. So we'll go ahead and bin our copy of Albaz directly from our deck to grave. And then we'll pass turn. And then this is, like I said, that hand that we have, look at the setup that we have. We have Branded Fusion, plus Mercurier, plus Cartesia, and we still have a hand trap to help slow our opponent down. In addition to Branded in red on their turn, with the Albaz already in the graveyard to threaten a Mirror Jade play. Like, it's just a lot of gas. Like I said, this deck is very, very strong and extremely consistent. Tons of different lines and setups you can pull off that get you to these really insane end boards. And the fact that Nadir Servant is just, it works so well on this deck. Yes, I'm aware that it locks you out of your extra deck for the rest of the turn, but honestly, that's not a problem, because with cards like Quem and Cartesia, you're just able to play on the opponent's turn so freely and easily. Like, the restriction doesn't even hurt you, honestly. So that's going to wrap up my combos and test hands video for my pure branded deck list. Like I said, deck list in the link in the description below if you guys want to watch the profile. But outside of that, this is going to be Nick hitting that end phase. Thank you all so much for your continued support. And like I said, I think Branded is very well positioned in this new format come January 1st once the new ban list actually goes into effect. But with that being said, this is going to be Nick hitting that end phase. Peace.